Okay, let's start the show. Welcome to episode 11 of the Superior Stream. I'm your host, Mayo. We got all kinds of fun stuff for you tonight. We have some issues with Google, specifically with the Attorney General, I believe down in Missouri, trying to pressure them into doing something they don't want to do. There's some janky fixes, buttered biscuits, a history of private server World of Warcraft, and a little bit more. All on tonight's show of the Superior Stream. So get ready, because here we go. That's enough of that. All right, that's my new intro music. I hope you all enjoyed that little bit. I'll also have a little outro music as well, but that'll be more towards the end. I hope I turned the volume down enough. I think I did, but if not, I'll find out here in post production. But like I said, welcome to the Superior Stream, episode 11. About to get underway here. Uh, Let me go ahead and pull up the docket here. Like I said, Google is under a little bit of pressure. I'll go ahead and pull up their news right now. See if we can't take a gander. Can't take a look, see what's going on with Google. Because like I said, the Attorney General, let me see, I said Missouri, but let me make sure, let me do my fact checking here. We'll pull up a little bit of news here for us. Here we go. Courtesy of Tech Raptor, article by Mr. Max Mitchell, or Max Michael. Thank you very much. Here we go. Max Michael writes, for years, Google has been in a bitter fight against Mississippi, okay, not Missouri, but right around that same area, Mississippi Attorney General Jim Hood. The reason? Hood claims that Google is aiding in online piracy because sites which have pirated content show up in the search engine results, as well as the fact that autocomplete function suggests illegal activities. To the surprise of no one, of course, a connection was discovered between Hood and the MPAA, suggesting the investigation of Google was being done at the behest of major media corporations. However, documents recently obtained by Google through a subpoena show another twist in the story, an organized conspiracy between the Attorney General and media giants to destroy Google's reputation with negative news coverage. But let's take a look-see here as he goes on. A federal judge has already ruled that Hood acted in bad faith by issuing a subpoena against Google and issued a temporary injunction on the subpoena. The court's view, the subpoena appeared, I'm sorry, in the court's view, the subpoena appeared to be retaliation for expressing protected speech. Let's see here. After it was discovered that the subpoena sent to Google by the Attorney General was actually written by MPAA lawyers, Google set out to prove the improper connection between Hood and the MPAA by filing numerous subpoenas both against Hood and the studios that make up the MPAA. Hood and the MPAA have fought the subpoenas and, for the most part, refused to share the requested documents. However, the MPAA did eventually relent and handed over some of the requested documents. A recent filing by Google with the federal court indicates that although some of the requested documents have been handed over, the MPAA is still withholding many documents that are relevant to the improper relationship with Hood. However, the documents which were turned over reveal a conspiracy between Hood and the MPAA to pressure Google into altering its service, even though Google was not breaking any law. Emails from Hood's lawyers to the MPAA detail the following plan. Okay, this is interesting. Let's take a look-see at these bullet points. Of course, this is more or less a summation of these emails, which I guess cast Mr. Hood and the associated MPAA fellows in a bad light. But let's see what they were able to pull up here. A recommendation that News Corp would develop and place an editorial in the Wall Street Journal emphasizing that Google's stock would lose value due to the sustained attack by the Attorney General. A suggestion that NBC could run an anti-Google segment on the Today Show. A proposal that Hood work with the MPAA, Comcast, and the News Corp to create a PR firm to attack Google. After the media blitz, the PR firm should hire a lawyer with the appropriate expertise to make regulatory filings against Google. And finally, as a last resort, the MPAA would write subpoenas against Google to be signed by Hood and any other willing state attorney generals. All right, so based on this evidence, Google claims that the subpoena issued by the Attorney General was not part of any legitimate investigation, but was merely the final step in a plan to put pressure on Google. This further discredits Hood's long-standing campaign against Google, which was already on shaky legal ground after a federal court ruled that Hood was acting in bad faith. Of course, this is all very interesting and whatnot, but if you don't use Google that much or you don't understand the internet, basically how I would summarize it is this. Think of Google as, say, like the company in charge of keeping all the roads in your local town or city in good working order. Paved so you can drive across them and get to them where you need to go. And uh, for the sake of this explanation, imagine Google is very efficient. If you want to get someplace, they've made the roads very streamlined, very, very good at navigating, easy to follow, easy to find out where you are. Okay. So that means if you want to go to a place that has all kinds of bakeries and food outlets, they have like a road that's just right down the keel as to what you're looking for. All right, and you can get there real quick, really efficiently. They know that they've taken notes from all the people in the whole city, i.e., their search algorithm, as you might refer to it, and uh, and made it so that everyone knows exactly the best roads, and they've kind of compiled the best roads into where you would want to go. Okay. What basically this attorney is alleging is that because Google happens to have roads that run through the red light district, Google is thereby responsible for what happens in the red light district. By the red light district, of course, I'm referring to, I guess the nefarious groups such as drug peddlers, gun smugglers, and so forth you might find in the darker recesses of your local town or city. Or if you want to compare it to the internet, piracy sites, torrent sites, and various other nefarious places that maybe the less scrupulous folks may bother visiting on the internet. But back to my original comparison. So basically, like I said, they've made a very easy road or roads to pretty much anywhere and ever in your town, including, like I said, the red light district with all the nefarious activity. What the attorney is alleging is that Google is responsible because they have roads going to that district. They're responsible for all the criminal activity taking place on those roads. When in actuality, what the Attorney General should be doing is going after the actual, activity on these roads. Or, like I said, to bring us back into the real world, actually go after the piracy sites, go after the torrenting sites, and so on and so forth. All these websites that they claim are taking billions of dollars out of the music industry. They're not, by the way, but um, rather than going after Google. Because, like I said, Google has just made it efficient to search out content that you're looking for. Okay? It does this by taking what's known as a search algorithm and compiling data from people who use its search engine. So whenever you search for something on Google, say you like shoes, so you Google shoes, it'll bring up not not just any old shoe site. It'll bring up a site on shoes based on millions and millions and millions of other searches. It's like I said, a refined, perfected mechanism for finding content on the web. And like I said, in that regard, you say you want to pirate something, all right? If you're going to look for a place to get the content for free someplace on the internet, Google is the place to go. Not because they give out these services, not because they purport them or support them anyway, rather than that pirates have used Google to the extent that if you're going to pirate something or get something illegally, the in-ways laden by their search results have created, I guess, a very easy way to find uh, nefarious characters on the internet. Specifically, people hosting, I guess, torrent sites. Like I said, like the Pirate Bay, ISO Hunt. There's thousands of websites that host illegal content. So it's less a matter of convicting Google and more a matter of going after these small pirating sites. But I believe, this is my personal opinion, a little bit of subjective criticism here. I think that the attorney is going after Google because Google has a lot of money. All right. The average Joe Schmo running a small server out of the back of his barn isn't going to be able to pay the MPAA the kind of money it wants. Okay. They don't get that kind of enough money off the ads on their poorly made pirating websites. Google, on the other hand, has, as I've heard, quite a bit of money. I'm not sure like how much money they do have. I know they have like enough money to buy a small island and create their own little nation someplace off Costa Rica if they wanted to. They could have a whole fleet of small islands and basically recolonize a portion of the planet, pretty much at this point, with the kind of money they're flinging around. So that being the case, having the money that they have, uh, having access to all the illegal content, as it were, not necessarily because they want it, but because that's where it is on the internet. They're the prime target when in reality they're innocent in this case. Now that being said, if you want to argue ethics and something, I guess you could argue ethically. They shouldn't be compelled to host that content on the internet. And but the thing is, they're not hosting it. They're just allowing you to search for it. You know. Um, that being the case, like I said, it would be more feasible if you wanted to take down the content to actually go after those hosting the content, not those that allow you to search for the content. But that's basically my 2 cents. Thanks again for Mr. Let's see what's his name here, Max Michael for the wonderfully written article. It read fairly well. I don't think there was any typos floating around in there. So let's go ahead and snip that little page off right now. Move on to my next docket point. I don't have too much to talk about this afternoon, I don't think, but I'll try to fill in as much time as I can with very interesting stuff here. The next thing I want to talk about though are my janky fixes, and I'll be taking a look at those wonderful fixes through the power of MS Paint. So give me just a second here. We'll get MS Paint pulled up. There we go. I think that should about be it. There we go. There's MS Paint. Because I love to draw stuff. So let's go ahead and get underway here. I'll give you guys a few representations of my wonderful feats of engineering. All right, completely original ideas, at least as far as I know. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one on my list is my grocery bag hat. Um, this really came about as a prevalence of cloth, cloth form grocery bags have become, I guess, the norm now. You can't really go to many places in the U.S. without having these more or less shoved down your throat, or at the very least, offered to you in some sense. But one thing I noticed, it's rather hot down here in Texas, so the sun is always beating down on me. And like I said, if you remember my issues with my light bulbs, I don't like powerful photons blasting me in the face, constantly. So I need to find a way to subvert these devilish sunlight rays from blasting me into a burnt spot on the sidewalk. So how could I do this? I noticed when I was going to get groceries, I had a surplus of cloth tempered grocery bags. I was thinking, okay, how can I utilize these? I mean, I more or less already have what is effectively a hat at my disposal. Okay, it has a head-like shape. It has two straps on either side. But if I try to fit it around my head, it's usually a case of it being too big. So that will not do. What I had to do was figure out a way to make it fit on my head in an appropriate manner. Um, I guess the beta test of this would be the roll-up technique. which I pioneered uh, in a fit of being terribly hot outside. I had to get this done real quick, like that out of the way. So I would roll up the aforementioned grocery bag to a comfortable fit. All right. When I rolled it up, of course, this made the circumference slightly smaller due to the fact that, of course, it's rolled up a little bit. There's a rolled up bag. Now it fit more snugly on my head and comfortably. And depending on how I managed to roll it up, I could roll it up so that part of the bag was more or less drifting or draping off the back of my head, so it acted as a sort of sun guard of sorts. Now, I call this my hobo hat. You know, what I really need to do is buy a proper hat that actually, is a hat, not a grocery bag. But in lieu of not having an actual hat, the grocery bag hat actually worked fairly well. So I was actually quite pleased with that little experiment. I think in the future I may add a some kind of strap or band, perhaps even a rubber band, to, like I said, subvert the powerful, unrelenting, devilishly hot rays of this Texas sun I have to live in on a regular basis. Look at that sun with a surprised look. So he's not beating down on me so hard anymore. So let's go ahead. Like I said, uh, grocery bag hat, probably one of my most recent favorite janky fixes. But let's go ahead and continue on. Another issue I have to deal with is insulation. Uh, if you're in a place that's really hot or cold, you'll often run into the issue of insulation, or lack thereof in many cases. Usually, you'll lose heat or cold through windows, but my windows are fairly well insulated, so that's not a problem for me. However, uh, at the other part of my house, past a few doors, which you can't really see here, but there's two separate doors that I have in my apartment, so more or less. All right. So in either one of these doors, there is a room, and in each of these rooms, there's a small window for ventilation. All right. Now, normally this wouldn't really be that big of an issue, I don't think, you know. But me being of a conscious mind, let me go ahead and give some kind of reference for you. This window is about, I would say, up and down, maybe I'd say a foot and a half at most, at its as the longest. It has a wire mesh screen, uh, to keep out the bugs and various other creepy crawlies and stuff that are all over the place outside. So there's a wire mesh screen, and it's more or less there for the purpose of just fresh air. But I felt like I was losing too much of my heat and or cold through these vents. So what I co-opted, what I kind of created, was a makeshift uh, manner of insulation. Now you can do this in multiple different ways. Um, the cheapest I would probably recommend is used paper of some sort. Toilet paper is nice, but there's no sense in the amount of toilet paper it takes for this particular project. I would rather use something more economical, such as newspaper. So newspaper acts as a great manner of ventilation. So you crumple up a newspaper, you know, and if 1 or 2 weeks of collecting newspapers, and you'll have a nice little bit of insulation. All right, so you'll take your crumpled newspapers and fit them inside the window. Let me, if I can't draw this more expertly now. This is an exaggeration of the dimensions, of course, but for the sake of just for the sake of basic engineering, showing you what I'm working with here. So there's the inladen window. Of course, like I said, there's the window itself and the mesh uh, around the outside there. So I would take this crumpled newspaper, all right, and you insert it into the hole here. So let's see, if we can't copy this over real quick. Bam, and bam. So we have now a mesh of paper. But while this mesh of paper is quite efficient at blocking heat and or cold from escaping, it doesn't really stay in place by itself. So I had to maneuver a way around to find a way to keep this paper mesh in place over the windowsill. Write dimension here. So yes. So there's a paper mesh. But how am I going to hold this paper mesh in place? All right. What I need to do is find some either kind of tape or some kind of manner to put it in there and make sure it doesn't move. Because I want to, like I said, keep the cold in and the heat out, or vice versa during winter. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, hidden this here. So, okay. There's a number of ways you can do this. Like I said, you can just tape across the window, but I know that's really a waste of tape for me. You don't really need this much tape going all over the place. What I would recommend is get a flat sheet of cardboard, something lightweight yet durable. Lay that over the window, like so. So there'd be the window. I said with the mesh paper inside. Put the cardboard, and I would apply tape liberally at the top edge to create a sort of hinge of sorts, so you can fold the cardboard door of, I guess the window seal almost, up and down over the window. All right. So when closed, it'd be bring it down, and it would create like I said, just a window seal. And like I said, the paper shouldn't have enough weight to it to actually push that out, but if it does start to push out your cardboard, simply apply a small strap of tape, or maybe two. Of course, like I said, you'll have multiple bits of tape up here at the top to work as a main hinge of sorts, to kind of keep your paper in place. And in the event you ever need ventilation, or like I said, you want to get some fresh air, it's a very simple mechanics to removing this ventilation. Simply take the wadded paper out. I'll go ahead and see if we can't grab this here, you know, and you can store it near to be around your bathroom, however you'd want to place it, and you have your window back open again. I'm quite pleased with this uh, personal thing I've done. You can also, if you have some linens or other heavy-duty kind of material you're not using for a bed or something, you can also cram that in there if you need to. But like I said, if you don't want to use that, simply some old newspaper, various other rags of that sort will kind of block up the airflow, and that's what you're trying to do to, like I said, maintain a kind of homeostasis for your house. You know? That's my secondary janky fix, my toilet paper newspaper insulation technology. I'm quite pleased with that. But so let's go ahead and the last one of the night. This one I'm more on the technological side, but still quite good. Uh, I'm a big fan of Logitech mice. They're fairly cheap, easy to maintain, but at $10 a pop, they often break pretty easily. So let me go ahead and see if I can't render this mouse properly. Okay, that's about near to be about as good as a representation as I think I'll get. Dimensions may be off by a minute amount, but I'm within an acceptable range, mind you. So, what's wrong with my mouse, or what's wrong with the mice that I get from Logitech? Specifically, like I said, after a little while, they simply break. This is, I believe this would be, what's the word? Planned obsolescence. But however you feel about that particular conspiracy theory, the fact of the matter is I can't work with a mouse that's broken. So I have to have a way to get it working again. So there's the wire, because I prefer wired mice. Wired mice are the best mice. And like I said, either the left or the right click will stop working depending on, what time of the month it is. So I need to find a way to keep these clickers up here from, stopping to click. So I need to get them elevated, because, like I said, if they're depressed and they don't come back up, then as a mouse, mechanically it's failing me. So let's see. Let's go ahead and zoom in to this particular thing. Now, between the clicker, or I guess the mouse click, however you want to say it, there is a little slit, probably less than, I would say, uh, maybe a millimeter at most, maybe 2 or 3 millimeters. In this slit, you want to slide some kind of little divot of paper, and you need to push that back until you get the desired elevation for the mouse. However far you feel you need to push it. Um, Originally, I'd actually open the mouse up, all right? And if you ever opened up a mouse before, let's zoom out a little bit for this one. It's rather complex. There's lots of little working bits of mouse inside. If we can pull it up here. There's the scroll wheel inladen, along with two little things here to detect clicks. All right, I applied a bit of paper and glue to the, I believe it was the left click. and because I thought that maybe if I give it more height, I could push the clicker up. But after a bit of testing, I found that that was not really the case. So here's the skeleton, I guess, of the outside. There's a bit of circuitry and stuff on the inside. You can take a look inside your own mouse as well. It just takes a little bit of a screwdriver, and you can see exactly what the inner workings of your mouse are. But like I said, trying to add bits and bobs inside the mouse was not an effective strategy. The more effective strategy, zoom back in here, was, like I said, the slip of paper into the side of the clicker. Like I said, you want to push it about as far back as it'll go. The further back you get, the greater the wedge you kind of create. So you want that wedge to be a little bit further up so that the contact point for the switch that it acknowledges the click is increased. Now it's important to note this little diagram I'm showing you here is an exaggeration. It's not going to go up that much, but you want to increase it by enough millimeters that you get the agency of the click. And like I said, so if any of your mice stop working, now the scroll wheel is a bit trickier, but the actual mouse clickers themselves, the buttons on your mouse, can be brought back to life, or at least given a second chance, with an appropriate little slip of paper wedged gently into the crevasse above the clicking area. But that's my restorative technique for getting a mouse up and going again. And that's about all the janky fixes I have for my janky fix corner. Let's go ahead and clear that out and move on to the next wonderful point this evening. Let's see. I gotta move on to my buttered biscuits. And what do I mean by buttered biscuits? Well, to be honest, I hate butter on my biscuits. So it's a common expression of mine to say that really butters my biscuits whenever I'm referring to something that I dislike or generally don't want in any form or fashion. So I got two things today. In future episodes of Buttered Biscuits, I'll probably have a few more topics on hand, but I haven't had too much time to do show prep for this particular show, so we only have two this evening. So the first form of my Buttered Biscuits are people who don't remember passwords. Okay, we're in 2015, you know, and we're closing in on 2016. We're halfway through this year, more or less, and people still can't remember their passwords. People forget their passwords. And there's no reason to do that. There's a number of wonderful tools available to you. Okay, and in fact, I'm going to do a review on a particular tool I use on a regular basis called RoboForm. RoboForm I use for uh, saving passwords as well as other special documents and such. Um, it's a great little tool. It's easy to use. And if you're a person who forgets their passwords, the usernames, or both, it is great security wise because it encrypts all of your information and it locks it to one password. So instead of having to remember multiple passwords, you can just remember one password and you can more or less access all of your other passwords for any other website you could ever hope to go to. But like I said, RoboForm's one tool. There's numerous other tools. I think Google has a password saving utility and other browsers and such as well. But like I said, even without those kind of tools, uh, there's like I said, you should be if you are a password really should be something you would only know. Okay, so by that very narrative of what a password is, it should something be something that sticks in your mind, something you cannot forget. So we've had quite a while to develop passwords, for both technology wise for quite a while. And people still forget them. I have coworkers that can't remember their passwords, get locked out of their systems. I have friends who have trouble getting into new games because they don't want to be bothered with setting up a new account and registering an account and then setting up a password and so forth. But this should not be a hurdle. This should not be a barrier to entry. You shouldn't have to worry about maintaining a username and a password. Like, that's why I recommend RoboForm or whatever other form of password uh, technology you want to use to keep yourself from forgetting passwords. Like I said, uh, do some research. Pick out the best tool for you. Like I said, for me, it's RoboForm. For you, it might be something different. But I hate having to wait on people who've done forgot their passwords when there's so many different ways to record and save them in a secure manner that's not going to compromise your security. You're 2015. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, passwords. People who forget them. Also, on my buttered biscuit list is bureaucracy in many forms. When I refer to bureaucracy, uh, I'm not specifically looking at the government as a whole, but basically any system or series of systems uh, that don't really work that well. And like I said, there's bureaucracy in every form and every facet of our life. If you've ever had a job, you'll know what I'm talking about. But to kind of set the stage for you, let me go ahead and talk about bureaucracy. Like I said, for me, it's the idea that, all right, say for instance, you want to put a thingamabob in your front lawn, okay? But you're part of the homeowners association. So you need to file a form with the homeowners association. So you're like, okay, fine. And you check your local, registrar, and it turns out that dingle hoppers are allowed, but you have to, sign in a form and, have it stamped and approved by the local HOA board. So, all right, you do that. It's a very simple thing. The form only costs like $5. You mail it off. Okay. So that's the beginning of the journey. So let's go ahead and do some math real quick. Go ahead and grab some paper here. Okay, on the form it says it can take up to 2 weeks to process your request. So you're expecting it to be done in less than a month. So 2 weeks. Okay, so the mail runs pretty quick. It gets to the HOA deciding office in a couple of days. So yeah, it gets early. So you're ahead of schedule. You're well on your way to having a thingamabobber in your front lawn. Okay, but once your letter of request gets to the HOA association, it takes them a while to process a request. And it says so on the paper. So technically they're not lying. They say 2 weeks. But the fact of the matter is, the HOA is backed up like any other place. So you have, instead of what really turns into 2 weeks, it's like 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks. Okay, and there's some guy sitting in a cubicle going over request forms submitted by various HOA members. Like, can I have a pool in my yard? Can I have a statue? Like, yes, no, yes, no. And he has a big broad stamp, and this stamp is effective for 2 weeks. Okay, so whenever he stamps something, he puts it in his little out folder, and it sits in the out folder until it gets mailed off to the regulatory office, which is a derivative station from the homeowner's like main office area, right? And he gets your request for a thingamabobber in your lawn, okay? He checks over your paper, he looks over it, he realizes, okay, all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. He can put a thingamabobber in his lawn. So he grabs the 2 week stamp, he stamps it, all right, and he puts it in his out folder, okay? But it turns out that it's a holiday weekend, so no mail's going out. So instead of getting it off in right around 2 weeks, which it would normally have taken, like I said, it ends up being about 3 weeks. So your letter of request eventually gets to the final admissions office where they decide and approve the form after it's been looked at the main association. Right? But like I said, the delay with the holiday weekend kind of pushed it out a bit, and they're upgrading their systems at the final office. So little delay occurs. So now you're looking at maybe 3 to 4 weeks since you sent out your original request. So they get it at the new office. They finally get their computers up and going again. And they look at your form and it's like, okay, this all looks good. Oh, but the 2 week stamp is no longer valid. So we need to send it back to the original registration office. So they send that form back to the original registration office. But this can take anywhere between a week to two, or to a week and a half. So it goes from 4 weeks now to maybe like 5 to 5.5 weeks. At this point, you're getting a bit disgruntled because you've not heard back from the HOA. Whenever you call their service line, they're like, I'm sorry, sir, but we're currently processing that request. We'll have it done for you as soon as we can. Have a nice day, kind of deal. So you're like, all right, fine, whatever. I'm sure they're working as hard as they can. Right? So it gets back to the original registration office, and the guy looks over it. He says, okay, this we need to revalidate this submission. So he stamps it again with a new stamp. Again, another 2 weeks it's valid for. So he sends it back to the registration office. Okay, so it only takes a week this time because it's not a holiday weekend. But that we're up to like 2 months now almost. We got 6 weeks total that we've been playing with this nonsense. Okay, so it gets to the final office. Okay, all right. It has the proper 2 week stamp, and it's in the office that it needs to be in for it to be finally approved. So you can get your thingamabobber in your front lawn. Okay, he looks over your request form. Okay, he's looking over it. Everything adds up. Everything looks like it should, until he gets to your address line. Your address just happens to be 123 North Street on West Baker Lane. Okay, but on the official map he has, it's northeast West Baker Lane, okay? So he compares the map versus your registration form, and north, northeast, they're kind of the same thing. The postmaster delivers it to your address at north versus the northeast, so it doesn't really matter in most cases. But because it happens to be a bit different on your request form versus the official map that the HOA's final office uses, they can't process your request. So they send you a letter in the mail. We're sorry, we were unable to process your request due to an invalid address. Please check your information and resubmit your form, and have a nice day. So the whole process begins anew. You've spent 6 weeks waiting on this registration form that was never going to be processed correctly in the first place because it was just passed around, misplaced, and just improperly ignored. But the question at the end of the day is this the HOA's fault? Yes, it is. But it's not entirely. They don't mean to be bad with customer service. This is the reason their system is in place is because it's redundant. It was redundant when it was made, and it's redundant especially now. So you have a system that is completely and utterly like this needs to be reformed. Like so, that's the whole reason they were buying those new computers during that holiday break. But even with those new computer systems they installed, they still have a lot of other older systems, a lot of older redundancies that just don't work. This is the nature of bureaucracy and in its modern form. That's how I feel. I feel like with all this technology, we should have the most streamlined systems available. But it seems like more and more we're held back by bureaucracy that is based on some like 1950s kind of archaic model that just kind of has limped along through the ages. And as we become more computer literate, the computer side of the system has become it's not compatible with the old business, but the old business is still operating in the same way. So you have these two competing systems, kind of like ideological, you know, opposites that don't quite work right. And not every company has bad bureaucracy. Some companies can process stuff quickly and efficiently. Some companies can take care of it lickety split. So it's not every company. I'm not pointing any fingers. I don't belong to any homeowners association, so I was just using them as a fake, straw man example. But if you've ever had to deal with a bureaucracy similar to this, for whether it's a government or a job you've worked at or whatever the case, you understand this frustration. You understand this frustration because bureaucracy is bullshit. That's my buttered biscuit. That's my buttered biscuit for this evening. Bureaucracy and people who don't remember their own passwords. Oh, but enough of my ranting, enough of my crying, enough of my whining. Let's go ahead and touch on something I've been wanting to talk about, get off my chest for a little while. Something quite interesting, at least interesting to me. If you've never played World of Warcraft, this may not really affect you that much. But for me, during the period of like 2000, let's say 2006, 2007, somewhere around that line, uh, some very strange things were happening on the internet, and it all revolved around a private server known as Wowscape. All right. So what's a private server? For those of you asking that, a private server is basically an unofficial server. And what does that mean? An official server typically, like I said, is ran by the company that owns the game, whereas a private server is hosted by an individual who does not own the game or the rights to actually host it. Typically, you can be sued for hosting the game privately, but assuming you're not really making any money from hosting the private server, a lot of big companies will simply ignore private servers because it's cost prohibitive to go after every single Tom, Dick, and Harry who decides to start hosting their own server for a particular game. But WoWscape was a bit different. WoWscape was a whole new beast. But a blog post, courtesy of, let me go ahead and pull them up here. Take just a second. Get this. There we go. See, this is, let's see, you can find their name here. This is SP, so let's just refer to them as SP. All right. This guy documented it at length, what was going on at WoWscape. I was here for a lot of this, but he'll more or less summarize more of the more intricate drama that occurred. So let me go ahead and dig into the history here. This is back in March 9th of 2009. So I don't believe the server was still up at this point. I think it was already down, but let's go ahead and take a look-see, see what exactly happened. Okay, actually maybe it wasn't that far back. So a few weeks back, he writes, or she, WoWscape website got hacked. Farrell, the GM, got his account hacked as well because he didn't have a good virus scan, rolling on the floor laughing. Let's go ahead and highlight this. The truth is shocking. WoWscape generates 500,000 per month since the year 2009, and Peyton, the owner, doesn't even care to upgrade the servers that are slow and laggy. Some people permanently left, and they are referring to themselves, because it is unplayable. That's not to mention the new changes require you to have a good 8 to 18 hours to complete the in-game instances. And when they say instances, they're referring to dungeons in-game. If I recall correctly, when I was playing, I don't think I played the instances that much. I was more a guy who just liked to run around and explore the world, so this didn't affect me. So it's kind of why it went over my head, and I was more or less oblivious to this except for the lag that I ran into. But let me continue here. Uh, it's all done in the name of money. Harder game equals more donations equals more money to collect. By donations, I mean you can get an item anywhere from $15 and up rather than raid for it a month at a time. Yet on the official Blizzard server, which has no bugs, no lag, and anywhere from 5 to 10 times more people playing, you pay $15 a month and can attain any item in-game as well as complete the same instances that take 18 hours in WoWscape, that take 18 hours on WoWscape and 3 to 5 on the official server. And since the Lich King has been out, Blizzard made all those instances 30% easier when on WoWscape they're 100% harder. Makes no sense, does it? When shit hits the fan. Okay, so this was posted live on the forum, and people were losing their minds. It was pandemonium. This is the guy that hacked the forum guy here. Hello. By now, you probably know that this is not Feral, nor is this Silent, Zelius, Trelon, or whoever. Nor are we affiliated with any other server. We are just a group of former WoWscape members who, like most of the members of this community, have become quite unhappy. Unlike the rest of them, we decided to do something about it. We've become unhappy with the amount of lies, unfulfilled promises, and secrets that WoWscape team has kept from us in times past. Now we are here to inform the community of what there is to know. Oh, whoop, I'll go back up here. And all we're offering you is the truth. And he has a picture of a hand holding out a red pill. Oh, wonderful imagery. And Peyton. Okay, all right, let me go ahead and stop for a second. Peyton is the person who owns and kind of takes all the donation money from the servers, doles it out to people, and so on and so forth. You'll hear about that here in a moment. And Peyton, after you've read this, don't go and post some long speech about how wrong we are and how the future of Scape game is going to be better. You sound like a fruit when you do that. If you're wondering how we access Farrell's account, his password was retrieved using software that was installed on his computer. It was also unintentionally installed on a few other community members' computers. So if your virus protection has alerted you of password theft, don't worry, we don't need your account anyway. Who really owns WoWscape? Okay, so this is a whole new subject here. Peyton, Pepe, as they call her here, is the owner of WoWscape. We still call it WoWscape here because it was blank to rename it. And, well, that's basically it. You'd think that position would get the most respect, but no. In reality, Peyton holds no other title on the server except maybe donation collector, but we'll get to that later. She is only occasionally seen on the forums. She doesn't work on the website. She doesn't improve the emulator, or the database, or any other job. She doesn't even play World of Warcraft. She basically sits there and orders everyone else to do what she wants. In fact, poor Trinity here seems to be doing all the work lately. So, if Trinity and a few other vital staff members were to quit, Peyton here would be shit out of luck. And the only thing she can do is pray that won't happen. So that's page 1 of 5. Let's see 2 of 5 here. Who really runs Wowscape? What's with this Storm emulator? Even if you're going to work on it, it's still not based off of Burlex's work? Okay, let me go ahead and take another stop here. There was a lot of drama concerning the emulator that our private server ran on. I didn't really read too much into this when I was on the server. All I knew was that we were using the architecture for the emulator of our server. This is all big mumbly jumbly words, but let's keep it simple here. Alright, we were using a copy of a popular emulator used by another guy who ran a private server. Basically is how I understood it. So let's go ahead and read here to kind of piece this together for the bits I'm leaving off. Alright, it's still not based off Burlex's work. You cannot just apply your own patches and call it a new emulator and ninja all of the credit. And keeping it exclusive sounds like it violates GNU AGPL, which is basically the rights for you to be able to share software and such. And basically what they're doing is holding it all to themselves. But anyway, going ahead. Public subversion repository, please. And then he goes on, who really uses Wowscape? Okay, another big issue is donations. This has been an issue before. Burlix, the lead developer of what this server's emulator is based on, attacked Wowscape for making money off his work. This continued up until he joined Wowscape as a developer. We assume he started getting paid. Alright, you all know why you donate, to support the server. Well, recently this has gone far past just supporting the server. We took time to look at the donation logs. Here's the first thing we noticed. Wow, records 1 to 20 of 1,009, let's see, 194,217 pages of donation records. I'm not sure how many donations they had on a single page, but I'm willing to bet it was a lot. So let's go ahead and scroll on down here and see what happens next. This is every donation since the auto donate feature. Maybe not even. Here we have the total amount of donations for the month of January, which is blank. If I'll go ahead and insert whichever expletive you want. You not see $540,771.91. If you hosted a server with the latest hardware, best specs, fastest connection, etc., available from SoftLayer, and you bought 5 of them, you would be paying around $15,000 a month. So let's do the math. Monthly donations, $540,000. 540,000 dollars. Monthly bill, $15,000. Patent pockets, $525,771.91. That's every month. Hey, that's enough moolah to buy something nice, like an iPod Touch, or a trip to Disney World, or maybe even a treadmill. And this is the joke because Peyton supposedly, she bragged about buying a treadmill on the forum or something along those lines. Alright, so, hey, maybe she'll spend it on something useful, like a better virus protection software for apparel here, or not. So, when you fork over your hard-earned cash for some overpowered items, just remember that you're helping insulate Peyton's wallet during these tough economic times. Okay, and here's some more out here. Would Hasbro have and his multiple personalities be mad that I brought up Marcelio? Wait a sec. Okay, so this is some other forum drama. Let me see if I can't piece this together. Okay, why most let's go ahead. Battlescape PTR server, what happened? Also, the Battleground test server was on Wowscape a week ago, wasn't Wowscape's property. They were property of the developers Zelius, who managed and ran that server. Zelius decided to move the server to a better WoW server, WoW Legacy. So Zelius did not steal anything except what was in his first place. So, okay, I think I understand now. So what we're saying here is, I think we were claiming Zelius stole the coding for the arena server or something along those lines. when in fact, let's see, yeah, property of the developer. So the guys who made it, they're the ones who put the server together completely. If you don't know, the server was moved to WoW Legacy, and all the accounts slash characters were moved there as well. So, if you had an account on the Battlescape PTR server, you can log in with the same information there. All you have to do is change the realm list to logon.wowlegacy.net. And a word of thanks. Let's see. We'd like to thank the folks over at WoW Legacy for giving us the resources we needed to carry out this investigation slash revelation. You have contributed greatly to the cause. If you want to play 3.0.9, have a reliable staff, and a great time, try it out. They also have an instant 80 battleground server with mid-rate server. To play on WoW Legacy, please visit us. Yeah, alright, so, like I said, so yeah, it's a bit of a troll, a bit of a haha, fuck you to Peyton. Oh, I like how he's changed his signature as well in the forum. I need a better virus protection program as his new signature. But let's see what else I have here. But yeah, this guy talked about a little bit more. But yeah, I played on the WoWscape server for quite a while. And I was big into the private server WoW scene because it was at that time, the idea of playing a game for free that other people were paying $15 a month for. I seemed like, wow, I'm a cool guy. I'm elite hacksaw. I'm king of the script kiddies, you know. Uh, and I enjoyed the game. I had fun, you know. I met great people. I had great adventures. I explored a truly wonderfully rendered world at the time. At least stylistically, maybe not graphically, but stylistically, one of the best MMO worlds to explore. And I could play it at home since it was fairly reasonable on dial-up, which I was using at the time. And I could fit the entire game on my mobile hard drive, which I could drag to college and play on any of the campus computers. Because WoW's specs were relatively low end, so I didn't have to worry about overheating the external hard drive or the college's computers. It was really a great time to be me. Oh man, but that brings back a bunch of memories. Specifically, because it was a private server, there were parts of the game that weren't really that I guess focused on PvP. So you could kind of run around certain parts of the game you wouldn't normally get to on the official server. I remember at one point there was a place near the starting town of Stormwind. If you're not familiar with Stormwind, it's a starting town for a lot of Alliance folks. All right, and outside Stormwind, I believe there's a graveyard. I forget what the graveyard's called, but there's a bunch of spiders and zombies and that kind of stuff floating around. The kind of the typical fare you'd encounter in a graveyard setting. All right. And in this graveyard setting, there's a tomb. All right. So inside this tomb is where I went because there was a quest related monster in this tomb. And what I would do, I would guard this quest mob, and whenever low level characters would come in that tomb to try to kill it, I would face them down as a self proclaimed world boss. Now, of course, I was a high level at this point. I could one shot any of these low level guys, but I decided I'd have some fun, you know. So I'd basically use nothing but my basic attacks, which as a warlock did like next to no damage. So I would hit him with a dinky wand or dagger and do a bit of damage. And I'd have a whole group of low level guys team up to try to take me down. And I would always call out my attacks before I did them, so I'd kind of give them a little bit of time to run away from when I was actually going to do, a whole bunch of damage to them. And whenever they would manage to kill me, I'd make sure to type like in the general chat, "You've killed me this time, but I'll be back, and soon you'll all know the fear." I mean, and I'd be all dramatic and so forth. And I was literally a world boss. It was fun. It wasn't official. I wasn't sanctioned by any global game moderator or anything like that. It was just there was so few people on the server you could do things like that. Things you just couldn't normally do on the official server. Another thing you could do was kill the flight. What are they? Flight path keepers, I guess is the word I would call them. Basically, I forget what was the patch where they kind of fixed this, but before, if you wanted to screw with somebody, particularly one faction or the other, you could kill their flight managers, right? And the flight managers are how you would get from one point to the other on the map. So if you killed, all right, they say there's like only one flight manager between the north and south of a particular town. You kill that one flight manager, they have to kill you and wait for the flight manager to respawn before they can, go south again. Or if they want to go south, they have to walk as opposed to taking the more lucrative, easy kind of flight path. And so what was often done, you and your cohorts in evil would raid the alliance settlement if you were the horde, of course, and just kill their flight manager and just kind of camp there and just wait for people to start flying by and then getting stuck because they couldn't go any further. You know, that was some good PvP times. That was really good. And what else? Like I said, it was a free to play. At least it was free to play for me on the private server. But let me go ahead and close this out real quick. I had a lot of fun there. But like I said, the Wowscape is no more. You can Google it still. Let me go ahead and try Googling it just for the sake of old time's sake. See what happens. I'm pretty sure it'll like come up a page not found or something along those lines. Wowscape private server extreme top 100. Let's see. I'll do a little bit of. I should have done this beforehand, mind you, but give me just a second. Uh, my favorite class in World of Warcraft was the Warlock, mind you. Reason being is all of his attacks were decidedly gruesome. Basically, he made you vomit blood. You know, he made gaseous pores like just explode from your skin. And he summoned all sorts of demons and monsters and such to fight for him. And like every one of your attacks basically tossed the person into a fit of agony. At least that's what their description was in game. Let me see here. Let's see. No, they like I tried doing a Google myself. I'll go ahead and pull up the Google results for you guys. All right. Wildscape sued by Blizzard. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that part. This is another thing. Wildscape sued Blizzard for around $89 million. And after all the dust cleared, I think Peyton, Pepe as some referred to her, maybe she cleared $3 to $4 million at most. I don't think it was that much. Probably not. But suffice to say, $89 million, that's a lot of money. And that's, I believe Blizzard calculated that based on the amount of money they lost for all the people who would have been subscribers for the amount of time that they were playing, plus damages and other stuff, other legalese of that sort. So yeah, $89 million. That's the blog that I went to. Let's see. They do have a Facebook page, but I'm not about to check that out. Let's see. They have something on the top 100, which leads me to believe this may be an older. The Wildscape private server. Let's see what happens when we follow this link. It takes you to some Russian website. I'm not sure, but I think this might be a botnet distributing place. So to be on the safe side, we're going to get out of here, Stalker, right now. Get out of here. Because that place looked dangerous. So yeah, don't go to this place, because it looks like a Russian botnet. So stay the hell out of there. But yeah. Wildscape is dead. It's never coming back. And like I said, I was sad to lose my place that I played on, but the fact of the matter was there were numerous private servers other than Wild or Escape Gaming. It's just for the time, Escape Gaming was the biggest private server out there, more or less, comparatively speaking to a lot of other servers. And that was the place to be. They had multiple realms. It was ridiculous. But let me go ahead and check out the docket. What else do I have here? I got one more little piece for us here. We're closing in on right around an hour, so be a nice wrap up. Got going here in just a second. What I want to talk about is a book to read. I was hunting down. Let me go ahead and close this real quick. I was hunting down a an audiobook version of what's known as the Roadside Picnic. If you're not familiar with the Roadside Picnic, that's okay. It's a rather obscure book. I like the premise of the Roadside Picnic though, and Basically, I'll give you a rundown. Some aliens come down, they party on Earth, and leave a whole bunch of junk. Okay. The idea being, all right, if you look at humans, how humans behave. When we go to the park, for instance, and say we have a big party, and we just leave a whole bunch of junk laying around. We leave empty Coke cans. Maybe there's a radio. Maybe we left some fold-out lawn chairs and so forth. We just leave that stuff there because, it's just junk. We don't need it. So, are you leave it there behind? Then the animals come back into the forest area that you'd left, and they're looking at these strange objects they've never seen before. They can't comprehend. You know, to them, they're like mystical objects that they can't hope to understand. And that's kind of the premise of the roadside picnic. It's that aliens came down, uh, and severely affected the planet. But let me go ahead and give you a proper synopsis, courtesy of Stalker Wiki, uh, because I also want to talk about Stalker, let's see, Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, and Stalker Clear Sky, and Stalker Call of Pripyat. I'm a big fan of those games. I've done streams on them recently, but I've wanted to talk about the actual series for a while. So let's go ahead and pull that up right now. There we go. Okay, so The Roadside Picnic is a 1971 science fiction novel by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky, commonly known as the Strugatsky brothers, widely considered to be one of the most important Russian creations of the entire genre. I'm not sure about that, but at the very least, it's a very interesting book. The book begins a decade after something alien, called the Visitors by a human scientist, very briefly, approximately 12 to 24 hours, uh, landed at 6 different locations around the Earth, called visitation zones by human scientists. Okay, so neither the visitors themselves nor their means of arrival were ever seen, but the people who lived in those areas reported explosions and loud noises that blinded some and caused others to catch a type of plague. Some areas of the zones later became labeled by scientists as the first blind quarter, plague quarter, second blind quarter based off the effects of the visitation and on the population. These 6 areas, some populated towns, became infested with deadly phenomenon and littered with mysterious objects, with various properties whose original purpose was incomprehensible by humans and so advanced that it bordered on the supernatural. Each zone was perhaps the size of a few square miles, with abandoned buildings, railways, and cars, some slowly decaying while others looked brand new. The visitation zones became extremely deadly areas to all forms of Earth life containing space-time anomalies and random spots capable of killing by fire, lightning, gravity, or other bizarre ways. The laws of physics sporadically worked in the zones. So that's basically what it basically creates all these scientific anomalies. Okay? So you literally have no idea what's happening, and science cannot explain it based on what happened since these visitors came along. Anyway, the armies surrounded the zones with strict orders to arrest or kill anyone attempting to sneak inside or out. Okay, so here's kind of where you get the premise for the story. Governments feared some artifact could be found inside the zones with enough power to cause a plague, permanently damage, or even destroy the entire planet. A frontier culture arose along the perimeter of the zones. Men known as Stalkers, who risked their lives to illegally recover alien artifacts, called swag, from within the zone for large profit. It was extremely dangerous work since one wrong move inside the zone could be deadly. Stalkers only worked during the night since the zone was observed during the day by soldiers and scientists. Only one of 3 stalkers made it out alive during any given expedition. Even though the original purpose of the artifacts recovered was not understood, some objects had beneficial properties, like a round black stick called So-So that produced endless energy and was used to power vehicles. Others artifacts were deadly, like the Death Lamp, which emitted rays destroying all life around it. Most artifacts had no known function, either because they were broken and discarded by the visitors as trash, or became the purpose, or I'm sorry, because their purpose was too advanced to be understood by scientists. The most desired and legendary artifact was the Golden Sphere, which was rumored to have the power to make any wish come true, but was located so deep inside the zone and surrounded by such deadly traps, or anomalies, if you will, that only one stalker knew the way to reach it. So there's your story, all right? Okay, why am I talking about the Roadside Picnic? I'm talking about it because I do want to read this book, but I've not come across the audiobook version of it, and that's typically how I get all my books. I could hunt down, the print version, but I don't really have the time to really dedicate to reading the book right now. I could, but I would prefer, like I said, to get the audiobook. So I'm probably spend the next couple days hunting that down. But I've just been needing to read this book for quite a while. All right, but I'm talking about the roadside picnic. But how does that tie in with Stalker? All right. Well, like I said, there's a lot of connections between the book and the game, and they cover them in this wiki as well. Let me go ahead and bring down here. All right, parallels with the Stalker series. The term Stalker is used to refer to the illegal scavengers combing the hostile zone in both the novel and the game. So the name Stalker kind of carries between both the mediums. Okay. Both the Chernobyl zone and the visitation zones are filled with deadly anomalies of various nature. In fact, the games borrow most of the anomalies straight from the novel, which is pretty cool. So basically, in the game, the anomalies more or less act as obstacles for you to overcome or avoid in most instances. Uh, Typically, they'll if you get close to them, they'll kill you. So, as a function of what you need for gameplay, they operate very simply in that just do not go near them, avoid them at all costs. So it makes navigating maps in the game interesting. And in fact, I would compare it much like Half-Life almost. But let me go ahead and get a bit further down here. Artifacts, which are valuable anomalous objects in the zone, are a key element in both the Stalker series and the novel. Again, like I said, the video game uses artifacts as stat boosters because unlike most games nowadays that rely on, gradual stat progression, there's really no stat progression in Stalker except for the artifacts. Okay, so you don't level up or gain any particular skills other than just being able to, run around and shoot better based on your own experience in game. Not any kind of number bonus to, killing X amount of Y guys. But like I said, the artifacts are what give you certain special stats. But they're not permanent, and you can only hold so many artifacts on your person at one time. Typically, the artifacts will give off radiation in the game, which of course is deadly. So you usually have to balance this out with either drinking a lot of vodka to counteract the effects of the radiation, or have another artifact that soaks up the radiation. Um, what else? Ba-ba-ba. Okay, of course, here's a classic Stelka trope, is of course the idea of using bolts to check the way for anomalies is almost lifted directly from the game, or from the novel by the game series. So basically in the game, if you want to test to see if an area has anomalous activity, whether it's going to crush you with gravity or zap you with lightning, you'll toss a bolt, which you have an unlimited amount of in the game for whatever reason, to kind of test the area in front of you. If the bolt you have is metal doesn't react, then you can assume, okay, I can walk ahead without being turned into a meat pie by some gravity crushing anomaly. Uh, you know. Otherwise, if you see the bolt kind of float in the air and then disappear, you can maybe assume that there's some kind of something you don't want to walk into. Whew. But yeah, that's my little piece on the roadside picnic. I wanted to talk about it and say that if you've not read the book or played any of the soccer games, you definitely should check those out. Like I said, I am doing kind of a let's play on it right now. I'm not focused too heavily on it, but I am uploading a few videos to YouTube of my playthroughs. And during my playthroughs, I use my wonderful Russian accent and down some vodka as I play. So if you like the way my voice sounds when I'm talking in my Russian accent, go ahead and go ahead and give it a try. Watch my Stalker videos. They're totally cool. Apart from the fact that the game crashes every couple of minutes because it's made in Russia, actually the Ukraine to be exact, somewhere around in there. But yeah, go ahead and check those out after the show, of course. But I'm just about done. I don't have too much left for us. I was gonna delve in my word corner. Word corner, as opposed to my buttered biscuits, is just me talking usually about some words or play on words or whatever. I like to talk about regarding language. So let me go ahead and minimize this. Uh, I have a couple different words. The first word I want to talk about is the word dilatory, which I learned back in middle school. Dilatory, I like the word dilatory because I know it has those syllables dilatory, dilatory. Yeah, four syllable. It's quadrisyllabic. It means slow to act, or I think also to impede forward motion or forward movement. So if you want to use it in a sentence, you could say a turtle is very dilatory. And I love this word, but I don't get to use it that often because it's like I said, it's four syllables. So unless you want to be very eccentric with the way you're explaining how slow something is, I really don't get the chance to use it that often. Another word, requisite. Uh, Another one I don't get to use too often. Now, usually you would use required or necessary, but requisite, let's see, the definition exactly is made necessary by particular circumstances or regulations. Uh, like I said, I just like the way it rolls off the tongue. It's only three syllables, requisite, and it sounds almost exotic. Uh, like well, how can I use it in a sentence? The number of batteries requisite to power the flashlight are two. I think that's how I would use it. Let's see. Yeah, that's proper. And another one of my favorite words, benevolent. Also, it's kind of like a sister word to the word malevolent, which has kind of the opposite meaning. But let's go ahead and explore the word benevolent first. It's not as obscure of a word. Now, you've probably heard it one way or the other somewhere down the line, but you may not have known what it means. What it means, of course, is well-meaning and kindly. So a way you kind of use it in a sentence is uh, the mother cradled the small child in a benevolent manner. So yeah, that's the one way. All right, here's a word, very good. It's only two syllables, and I like the way it sounds. It's very phonetically satisfying. Garish, obtrusively bright and showy, or lurid. Of course, and what's the word lurid? Lurid means garish, or garish means lurid. But no, it feels like the word gaudy, but not quite. Gaudy is a bit different than garish. But garish, like I said, it ends in ish. Not too many words that end in ish, are that reputable. But garish, I like. It's one of those words I love, but don't often get a chance to actually use. Except that I only have three words left. We're just about done. Cavalcade. All right, here's another great word I love. Phonetically, I love the way it feels on my tongue and the way it rolls out of my mouth. Uh, a cavalcade is a formal procession of people walking on horseback or riding in vehicles. So, way you could use this in a sentence: there was a cavalcade of people as they uh, moved ever closer to the lunch line. If you have like a cafeteria or something. So, yeah, cavalcade. It's a cavalcade. That's a three-syllable word. No, not too rough. Like I said, phonetically satisfying is what I was gonna say. What's the next word we have here? Second to last word, gallivant. Oh, that's a good word, isn't it? It has it ends in ant. It's the hard ant at the end. Gallivant. Yes. Gallivant. To wander about, seeking pleasure or diversion. Oh, is that word not flamboyant as all hell? I love it though. It's another word that has that great phonetic taste that just leaves it's left in your mouth when you get done using it. Gallivant. So like I said, the if you want to have a good time and go gallivanting about the town, yes, gallivant. I don't get to use it that often, but when I do, I feel good when I do use it. It's such a wonderful word. The last on the list is brandish. Only two syllables. You've definitely heard this word someplace before, probably in a play regarding swords and such, but typically it's a wave or flourish something, especially a weapon, as a threat or in anger or excitement. Like I said, you could brandish just about anything, but typically it does refer to weapons, like the definition says here. Um, brandish, like I said, I use it fairly often, more often than gallivant or cavalcade for sure. Uh, Typically when I'm referring to a pencil or something that I can like pull out of my hands or brandish quickly. Uh, Anything that I can get a grip on, like I'll say I'm brandishing it if I'm just pulling it out real quick, like and kind of showing it off real quick. Like I said, I don't get to use brandish that often either, but when I do, it's a good one. Not as satisfying on a phonetic level compared to say garish or gallivant, but not a bad word. That's my word corner. I love learning new words. I love learning plays on words, sayings and so forth. So if you have a saying or a simile, a metaphor, a poem, whatever, I like that kind of stuff. All that kind of, losery kind of literary junk that not everyone likes, but I definitely like it. So that's my word corner. And we're just about getting towards the end of the show, so let me go ahead and I'll start playing the end music here. But before I do, I want to say thanks for watching, thanks for listening, thanks for giving me your ear for the night. Uh, if you can name the game the music that I'm playing is coming from tonight, but both the pieces of music are coming from the same game, mind you. Name that game in the comment section, and you will win a free game through Steam. So if you don't have Steam, I'm not sure how I can deliver it to you, but if you want the free game, should you happen to win, go ahead and, like I said, let me know. You have to send me a message on YouTube here, and well, actually, I'll see you in the comments, so I'll send you a message, and we'll get you that free game. But like I said, you have to name the SNES game, the music from my opening and uh, ending, I guess, ending music session comes from. Yeah, that'll do. So yeah, let me go ahead and start the music. I want to say thanks again. Like, subscribe, press all the good buttons, or don't, whichever you feel like doing. Have a nice night, folks. It was a pleasure doing my show yet again for you wonderful people. Thanks again, everybody. Have a nice night. Seriously, the show's over. Get out of here. You're not still watching, are you? Because the show's totally over at this point. Get moving. Get out of here. Get out of here.